All right, I think we're live now. Yes, mic check. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. Welcome everybody to the final official cohort 5 lecture, and I say official because we might have some more stuff after the new year if people are interested. Might have the hopes really were to get some people in the industry to come and be able to speak in additional sort of unofficial lectures. Everybody's pretty busy with the holidays, especially on the state side. So hopefully I can put something together after the new year, and then I'll just send it out via email. If it's a topic that seems interesting to everybody, join. If not, no worries. It's going to sort of be a bonus thing here if I can get the right people to contribute here. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that. But just want to say, appreciate everybody hanging in there through this. I've seen quite a few of these cohorts and classes occur, and what always happens is it starts with the large group and it dwindles down. And really, um, that is because this is a difficult topic and it is very hard to stay committed to it. So I just want to say that everybody who's here right now, you guys are fantastic and great job keeping with it. Most people don't, so you guys are a leg above everybody else. So congrats. All right. Okay, let's dive into it then. Let's share the screen. Cool. All right. All right, and we ended the last lecture talking joins, and every class has sort of been going longer than what I'd hoped. There's just so much material to pack in here, so I want to revisit that quickly, and then just give you guys an idea of the rest of the agenda. Then we're going to look at sort of raw data. We've talked a lot about raw data. That is the data that's sort of emitted directly from the blockchain, and we haven't quite worked with it yet. So I'm going to go into that today, and really what this is going to give you guys is, well, one, it is a little bit more of an advanced topic, so take your time with it. But two, it's going to give you the opportunity to branch outside of any of these easy prefabricated tables that sort of have everything neatly organized. This raw data will give you the opportunity to go look at anything on the blockchain. You can literally analyze any protocol. So it's really, really powerful to know, but it is challenging. So. And then after that, I'm going to talk a little bit about, actually, let me pull it up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about success moving forward and just practice. I mean, that is going to be the key to success, really. And depending on what your goals are, I personally have different recommendations on areas to focus on where to practice. So, yeah, let's dive into it then. All right. So, talking joins, we looked previously at an inner join by merging two tables to understand what the gas fee that was that it costs for all these contracts to be created. And I think some people were a little bit confused. I didn't have enough time to really go through this in detail. So I'm going to use an even simpler example here to show you kind of how these join tables are working. So let me make this bigger. Okay, so a lot of times when you're using joins, you have a purpose on why you do it, and that's because one data table doesn't have all of the information that you desire in your output. And the example I'm going to use here is we are looking at token transfers. So what this is going to be is there's a token on Ethereum called wrapped BTC. It's basically Bitcoin on the Ethereum blockchain, and it's a token that's transferred and has a value. So we're going to look at that. We want to look at wrapped Bitcoin transfers. So we look at this table. This gives us transfers of the BTC, and I'm going to pull it up. Go away. Back token transfers. Here we go. Okay, so we look here, and we can see that we have an amount. Now, if I run this, and I have a specific transaction here just to make this smoother, we're only going to look at one transaction. If I run this, I'll see that the amount is in raw data. So if you guys remember, there are no decimals on the blockchain. So this is sort of, there we go. this is the raw data. So if you look at this, um, it gives you information, but it doesn't tell you actually how many wrapped Bitcoins were transferred. I just see this. I need to know how many decimals this wrapped Bitcoin contract has to know the exact number of Bitcoin that was transferred. So, going off of Flipside, just so that we can fact check, here is the wrapped Bitcoin contract. And if I look at some of the info, token contract, it has 8 decimals. Now, this is a nice thing about Etherscan is it shows you a lot of this information. But if you actually wanted to know how to do this in detail, you could go to read contract, and then they should have a decimals column here, and it says 8. Okay, so what is this telling us? This says, looking at raw data, you have to move this over 8 decimals to figure out the actual number of wrapped Bitcoin that was transferred. Okay, so we don't have that data. We don't have that in this table here. So what we want to do is join another table so that we can actually see how many decimals without going outside of here, and then get the real number of Bitcoin that were transferred. So when I ran this, I saw that we have the contract address for wrapped Bitcoin. We have the raw amount. Okay, so this much was transferred. And now there's this other really nice table called Ethereum Core DIM contracts. And this has all this sort of metadata that you saw here about these contracts. So, hey, let's take data from that table, merge it with this transfer table, and then we should be able to multiply and get the total number of actual wrapped Bitcoin that was transferred. So, taking a look at the second table, we have address and decimals. And what we have to do is we have to find a common column between these two tables to join them on. Okay, so we ran this for wrapped Bitcoin. Here's the address and here's the decimals. Perfect. So between these two tables, our common column is address. So what I'm going to do down here, joining them, is I'm saying, hey, take table one, take all the rows on table one that exist, and then left join this table two. And we're going to join it on the contract addresses of each. So right here I have contract address for table one, and then I have contract address for table two. They have different aliases. As long as you're referencing the two, that's what's important there. So if I join those, and then I'm basically what I can do here is I could call a column from each table. So I'm calling decimals from table two, and I'm calling raw amount from table one. And I'm sort of doing an equation here to get that total value. Let's run that. Okay, here we go. And I said pull all. I have this all from table one, so it's pulling more than I need. I'm actually gonna get rid of that just to simplify things. Okay, so while that's running, just recapping, we're pulling data from two different tables by finding a common column, and then we're able to sort of use the data from both those tables to extract the data that we want. And sometimes when it lags this long, it means I did something wrong. Oh, no, there we go. Okay, so here we see actually 1.17 wrapped Bitcoin was transferred. And if we look at that transaction hash, yes, okay, we see that. So here I am just kind of validating the data, just a quick look. Yep, looks right. So this is sort of a real use case that you'll run into a lot. Flipside's really good where they actually try and include like these decimals and like USD values. A lot of times when you're joining tables, those are the type of things you want to bring over. But Flipside really in these easy tables has done a lot of this for you. So yeah, hopefully that provides a little bit more context. Now here we did a left join, and we're saying take that first table and all the columns, don't remove anything, and find matching ones from the right table and join it. And on the inner join, it was a little bit different. So just want to know, make sure you understand like inner join, left join, outer join. I will say left join is probably used 80% of the time. Get very, very familiar with that one. It's definitely the most common one. So start with left join, get familiar with it, and then kind of branch out to the other ones. I probably should have started with left join in lecture, but yeah, here we are. Anyways, yeah, any questions? And I do this every class. I forget to pull up the comments right away, so let me do that. Da, da, da. Okay, looks like I don't have any comments here yet. Cool. All right, well, let's keep moving on then. All right, we're gonna get into some heavy blockchain analysis here. So again, I'm gonna preface this with saying if you aren't grasping this, that's okay. Take it slower, maybe rewatch this again, try and understand it. A lot of what we're doing is just manipulating data. And know that a great part about like SQL and basically any type of programming language is there's more than one way to do this. So if you see, like I'm teaching you this way and you're reviewing someone else's code and you see they've done a little bit different, that's totally okay. Know that like, oh, I'm even more lost now. No, just know there's more than one way to do it. There's no wrong answers as long as you're getting to the right answer. So let's walk through this a little bit. Let me get rid of these. Okay, what are we doing here? So basically, I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to get rid of this. Okay, let's start with this. So what we're going to be looking at is Ethereum Core fact transactions. And this is looking at, for the most part, raw transaction data on the blockchain. If we go over here, okay, here we go. We can see all the columns that we're going to pull if we use this asterisk here. And then I'm just limiting it to one transaction hash so that we can kind of use one example throughout this. So if I run that, that'll give me all the transaction hash data, or all the raw transaction data for this hash, which I have pulled up here. And to give you background on it, we've been using this transaction as an example throughout this course. This is just a transfer of 900 USDC, which is a token from one address to another address. And we kind of walked through this in lecture one. A lot of this data that we see on this interface here is available on this raw table here. So we see block number, block transit timestamp, all this data. Where's like the data that we are actually interested in? A lot of the times when you are looking at a transaction and it's not something from an easy table and you really need to break it out, a lot of this data is stored in this input here. So we see this input data. Okay, if I want to relate this back to Etherscan, what is this input data? It's this. So this is input data, and we can basically turn it from hexadecimal, which is hexadecimal is basically just like it's integers and and alphanumerical values mixed together so that it can store a lot of data in a little amount of space, basically. So all of this right here, you see zeros, X's, 9, 5, C's, B's, all of this actually stores a bunch of data that we need to convert from this to basically human readable code. And one thing that we see is, so this is the raw data. Etherscan's really nice. It has this ability for us to kind of decode it a little bit. Hey, what did all that raw data mean? And it gets us part of the way there. It says, okay, this function is a transfer function, and the inputs were an address, 2, and then a unit 256 value. So these are the types, and these are the like inputs is how I would interpret this. And then if we look down here, this first one will be the associated to the address 2, and the second one will be the value. And then if we decode this even a step further, you see that that's what we get. So there's sort of steps here to take this from like raw data, like I can't understand this at all, I don't know what's going on, to decoding it. So what Etherscan did here, we're gonna have to do kind of on our own, because all we get on our end is this original hexadecimal data. So if we look at that, we should see this in this input data here. And yes, that's what we see. So how do we extract this into usable information that we can then analyze? So there's a couple ways to do this, and I'm going to run through, in my opinion, what is the most simple. But none of this is simple at all, I'll just say. So, okay, so breaking down what this input data is, the first 10 characters are really the function signature. And we, let's see, does flip side take this out for us already? Original function signature. Okay, so we see 0xA905 CBB. Okay, we see that there. Okay, so we don't care about the function signature. We know this is a transfer, so this isn't information we're um, trying to extract. We can, but it's already extracted here. So I'm going to ignore this step for now. What we want to actually extract is the rest of this data. And how I do this is after that first function signature, every 64 characters is a reserved set of data. So in this context, we can see that uh, the first set of 64 characters is an address that is equal to this. The second 64 characters is a value that's equal to this. So how do we get there? This is where we got to do a little bit of math, a little bit of new functions that are available in SQL, and ultimately we'll be able to extract it. So let's do that now. So okay, we use this substring function. Basically what this is doing is saying, hey, take a subset of this string's data. We saw that the first 10 characters were function signature. So I want to start with the 11th character and end on the 64th. So I'm taking a substring of this string. And what that will output will be the next 64 set of characters that we care about. If I run that, and just know that I'm going to take 3 steps here to get to this value that I want, but I want you guys to see each of these steps. So if I just did substring, skip the first 10, take the next 64, this is what I get. Here we go. And I gotta get a bigger screen here. All right. So if we look at this, this would be our recipient address that we're trying to extract. It doesn't quite match this. So we're not quite there yet. We see that there's a bunch of padded zeros. We go here. Yeah, you got something, Zook? Yeah, absolutely. No, thank you. All right, let me get here. Okay, there we go. All right, and I'm going to share my live query with everybody as well. So you have all of that. Okay, okay, so we're not quite there yet. We see that we almost are. But ultimately, what's going on here is there's these padded zeros. It's this reserved space in case there's more data here for each section. So in our case, it's an address that's not using up the full 64 space. So we need to get rid of these padded zeros for the most part. So how are we going to do that? Well, I am going to do a little bit more math. And on this next column, I'm going to say there's 24 zeros here. And again, this is where it's kind of getting, there's more ways to do this, but I'm showing you the most raw, every raw data you'll be able to use this method to use it to be able to extract the data that you need. Okay, so there's 24 padded zeros that aren't being used. So I need to basically skip those. So I knew the first 11, I'm not pertinent to its function signature. We're going to start after that. And now I know the first 24 are not important to us. So since I'm doing math here, I don't want to start at 11 plus 24 and then end 64 later. I now need to subtract 24 from the 64. This is saying take a substring of a starting point and a number of of characters after that starting point. So if I added 24 here, I have to minus 24 there. Um, I'll be honest, if you guys aren't following along at all, a lot of times, like, that's okay starting out. A lot of times, I know when I started out, I was saving other people's work and kind of copy pasting it. And after I did it a couple times, I was like, oh, this is a little bit different. I need to tweak this. And then I started diving into it a little bit deeper. So know that it's okay to just not fully understand everything right away. As long as you have resources that allow you to use the tools to get to the answer that you want, if you repeat it enough times, eventually you will start to understand it. So yeah, all I'm doing here is math. Look up the substring function and just know that we're just adding and subtracting math to get to where we want. Okay, so after doing that additional math, let's see where we get. We got nowhere. What did that do? Um, Actually, hey Zook, got a question for you. I was this morning running some flip side queries. This was the first time I had seen this. Do you have any idea why that occurs? I don't know if you're able to read that. Currently have 16 queries in a non-terminal state. Okay. Nope, all good. I didn't know what it meant either, and I wasn't sure if it was um, mine just 32 queries. Yeah, so maybe Flipside has a heavy load on their on their end right now, and things are just going slower. Who knows? But honestly, it's good that these type of things happen in these live lectures, just so you guys know that nothing goes smooth, and sometimes it's your own code that's making the mistake, and sometimes it's the platform. So troubleshooting. Okay, so the first sort of code we wrote gave us this. Now we remove the padded zeros and we have this. And we are almost there. We have all the hexadecimal values for this address minus one thing. If you notice, almost all addresses start with this 0x. So we want to go and add that to ours so that it's an official address. That's the end goal that we want to get to. So what I'm going to do is use a function called concat. And all it's doing is saying, hey, concat, take this value that we've extracted, add this 0x in front of it. That's all it's doing. You could concat anything you wanted here. You could put a name, you could put anything, but we're turning this into an official address that's recognized by the blockchain. All right, let's look at our different versions. I'm going to flip this. There we go. That is our final result. And, okay, so we have an official address that we've pulled from this raw hexadecimal data from the blockchain. So this is advanced. This is definitely something that's kind of challenging to do. But there was more data in that input data. We saw that the first 10 were the function signature. The next 64 was an address that we wanted to pull. And then there's the last 64, which I'm kind of cheating here, but honestly, this isn't cheating. This is just helping you understand what type of data there is a value data. That should come out to 90 million, but if we move the decimals, I think it's 900. So let's try and pull that out. All right, again, using our math here. So we know that the first 11 are function signature. The next 64 is that next block of data that's reserved for the address that we pulled. So we want to add 11 plus 64, and now we're at our final block of 64 characters. So we want the next 64. All right, let's see what that gives us. I'm gonna comment these out. We'll just be looking at the value. All right, so again, what are we seeing here? This doesn't look like the 900 that we want to see. And there's a couple things we have to do here to get there. We can see there's padded zeros, but it's actually not, the padded zeros are not important. What's important here is this is a numerical value. It's a unit 256. So we want to convert this hex data to a numerical value. Now, in our address example, that an address is already hexadecimal data, so we don't need to convert it to anything else. Here we know this is an integer, so we need to convert it from hex to integer, a numerical value. So there's this function here. It's within the flip side documentation here, hex to integer function. It's very commonly used. So we will take that, and basically we're just saying, hey, use this function on this data that we pulled out here. And let's see what that gives us. Now you can see how this is messy. You had to know ahead of time that this was an integer value for it to really, for you to know what to do here. So you can't really just be working in flip side. You have to be looking at Etherscan, and I'm real quick just going to say, okay, here's our final answer. So we were able to take that raw data and pull out the address and the value. So super powerful stuff here. This was a simple example, but a lot of times that input data can have 6, 7, 8 sort of inputs that you need to extract to be able to understand what that input data really says. Now I'm going to go a step further here just to show again, how you can't just work in flip side, you got to use your resources. So how did I know this was an integer? Well, there's a couple ways. So one, we are using Etherscan, and Etherscan was able to decode this. So fantastic. But if Etherscan didn't decode this, and I'm going pretty deep here, there's a thing called an ABI. It basically allows people to interpret your smart contract. And with that ABI, they're able to basically decode this hex data. Now, if you didn't have the ABI, you would have to, if Etherscan didn't, and they weren't able to decode this, what you'd have to do is go to the smart contract, go to the contract here, and what we'd want to pull is this, nope. We know that it's a transfer function. So this function called transfer address to unit value is within the code of the smart contract. I would have to go to the smart contract. I'd have to go try and find this. Okay, it doesn't exist. We gotta go layer D. This is actually a proxy contract. I've talked about this before. It's sort of a front-end contract that redirects all flow to another contract that actually has the code for it. So here I'm going to that, I'm going to contract. Now let's try and find this. Let's find it. So that's the event. Here's the function. Okay, so this is where we'd have to go to see the function is called transfer. And then the first input value is what we have from, we have 2, we have value. Does that match? Has 2 and it has value. Okay, maybe, let me see if there's another one. Okay, here we go. Yeah, looks like that was an internal transfer. Here we go. Okay, that was an internal function called underscore transfer. It's different. So here's our transfer function. So you can call this from the code, and here we can see that the first value is an address, and the second one is a unit 256. Don't worry about this, guys. This went way deeper than I was hoping to. Just kind of showing you that all this data is available in the code of the smart contract, and then we're using these tools to sort of not have to go so deep to help us and assist with us to be able to pull the data out that we need. All right, I think we've closed out how to pull data from the input data from a transaction. This was the hardest. This was hands down the hardest that you'll have to do. And I want to show you using the same exact transaction hash, how we can use event data to pull the same data as well. All right. All right, so we looked at transaction data, but now let's look at event data. On Etherscan, in this sense, there was a transaction that was called. We looked at the data, but now there's an event that's emitted. And what is this? Just to recap. So it's dependent on how the smart contract is coded, but most programmers will write an event that is emitted when a state change occurs. So if this was a successful transfer of this 900 USDC, it'll emit a log. A log is almost this like really helpful notification saying, hey, there was a state change on the blockchain. This is what happened. So as you can see, this is really helpful working from logs because it kind of condenses everything into the useful information that you'd want to see with this type of transaction. So here we see the transfer emitted, and what we have is an address from, an address to, and then the value. So going a layer deeper, this topic 0 is just the event signature. It's sort of all of this data compressed into hexadecimal. And then we have topic 1, which is the from address that matches this. We have topic 2, which is this, and that's the address to. Then we have this data column, which is the value. So we have kind of all that data we saw in the function call kind of packed here within this one log. So it'd be nice to really just work from this log if we could. And Flipside has done a really good job of sort of parsing this data and making it a little bit more easy to extract. So let's go to Ethereum. Let's go to core. And we're going to do fact event log. And this is going to be sort of a hard way to do it. And then we're going to have a little bit less hard way to do it where Ethereum or Flipside takes an even another step, which makes it easier for you to pull this data. But we're going to learn the hard way, just so that you have these core skills to be able to pull it. All right, and this is fact event logs. Okay, let's do this so that you guys can see what it looks like. Yeah, and while this is loading, I spend maybe 20% of my time pulling raw data. Most of the time, you don't have to go this deep. Most of the time, this data is available in other easy tables or other sources. This is a lot of times when you are looking at sort of a unique protocol, something nobody else has really looked at yet or broken down into an easier model. So it's definitely a skill you want to know, especially as you're trying to expand your skills here, because these easy tables, it's available for everybody to use, and there's a reason people use it, because it's easy to analyze, but that means that everybody can analyze it. And taking the next step in learning this and analyzing things that most people can't analyze is really gonna kind of allow you to excel as an analyst where other analysts sort of aren't able to. Okay, so here's what we can see. We sort of have all this event data. Let me minimize this. And topics. Okay, this is what we saw on Etherscan. These are all the topics. So we have topic 0. So the first one starts at index 0, 1, 2. So if we go here, we got topic 0, 1, 2. Awesome. There's all that data. And then we have this data field down here. Oh, where's that? Let's find it. Here it is. Here's our data field down here. Okay, so this is sort of like that raw hexadecimal data where we had to break it up by 64 chunks already parsed out for us. This is a very nice where I'm just like, hey, take this first index from the array, take this, take that. We still have to do some functions here, but we don't got to be doing this kind of complex math quite as much. Still math though. There's always math. Okay, so let's take the data that's in this Flipside table and let's break it out so that it looks like this. It's broken out into all these different usable data sets or usable rows and columns. Okay, so just showing you what I'm doing here. I'm saying, hey, take this topic right here. This is an array. An array is just a series of indexed data separated by a comma. And here you can see that here. So we have the first set of data, and then a comma, second set of data, comma, third set of data. So I'm saying grab the first, index 0. If I run that, what I should see is it just grabbing that first set of data. before the comma. Awesome. There we go. So we have that first set of data here. And what we saw is that first set of data is this signature here. So good info, but not really what I want. I want this from, I want the to, and I want the value. So let's get that data. Hide this. So what I'm going to do is I'm saying, similar to before, take substring of topic one. Topic one is the from, and the substring is from character 27 to 64. Just doing a little bit of math here to get the specific set of data that I want. So if I run that, it should give me the exact. And then again, as you saw, I'm adding the concat here to put this more in the. Sorry, got too many here. To put it in the format that we want for an address. Oops. All right, awesome. That looks correct. So let's do some little data validation here. So from address starts with 300, ends with 75. 300 ends with 75. Awesome. Looks like we were able to extract that data. All right, now let's move on to the next topic. I'm going to do the exact same thing. And the only thing I'm changing is I'm changing the index from that topics array. So hey, grab the two here, but it's the third one. And let's run that. Go ahead and just comment all this out below. All right, so the to address, let's see, starts with 76, ends with 6E, 76, 6E, perfect. All right, last one is we want to pull that data, and it was sitting right in that data field all on its own. So we don't need to index, or we don't need to, basically index anything. We can just say, hey, pull this data, and then we're going to use that really cool feature where it converts it from hex data to integer data. And that will give us our final value there. All right, so that was what I'll call the harder way to pull from the Ethereum fact logs. And let's go to an even easier way. All right, and here we have our value. All right, and then just kind of building on what we learned before is here we have this table, we have this raw value here. If we wanted to find the decimals, this is where we do a left join like we saw in the beginning of class and find the number of decimals associated with this contract so that it could be adjusted and reflect the real value. Okay. Now let's take a look at decoded event logs. So what we just looked at was fact event logs. This is going to include every single log on the blockchain. This decoded event logs, and Zook, please correct me if I'm wrong here. I'm not extremely familiar with Flipside's. I read the documentation this morning, but the way I understand it is they say, okay, let's take these fact event logs and let's add a little bit more information here. Let's pull data from the smart contract through that ABI so it can kind of read it, and let's make the data a little bit neater. So let me do, sure, let's go with this so that it's easier for you to sort of parse the data. Now the negative side here is if an ABI is not available for a smart contract, the data won't show up here. So you can submit an ABI to Flipside and they'll then backfill this data for you. But if an ABI doesn't exist and Flipside isn't able to read these smart contracts on its own, you'll have to back up and go up to these fact event logs. So always start with the one I'm about to show you here. And if the data isn't available, you can always go back to this raw data method and always get the data there. But again, Flipside's really doing a lot of heavy lifting here, trying to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So let's look at this. All right, so it added all this really, really helpful information that we had to go to Etherscan or the smart contract to understand. We had to know that topic one was from, topic two was 2, and then the data was a value. What flip side did is it went and read the smart contract and said, okay, let me interpret this hex data. We know that from is associated to this, to is to that, value is to that. So this is like already done for you. This is very clean, very neat. Takes all the math that you got to do, all the converting that you have to do out of the picture. And so I'm going to show you how to then pull this data, move it over. All right, and let me I see a question here. I'm gonna, oh no, what did I do? Uh-oh. Um, oh, looks like I accidentally deleted this and ran it and I wasn't able to go back. That is okay. Cool, we'll do it live anyways. All right, so what we're gonna do is take the decoded logs. So decoded log, and then I'm gonna use this feature here and say from. Okay, let's run this. All right, there we go. All right, let's get all of the data. Yes. So let me show you guys what I'm doing. The question in the chat is, hey, I have like a lot of queries all in one table. How am I able to hit run? And I'm only able to do this because Flipside has this really, really cool feature where you can highlight a specific section of code and hit run, and it'll only run that highlighted code, and it'll show up in the selection results. And you know, use this to your advantage. I'm using it here where when I'm sort of building things out, I can have these different sections to show you guys to make it run faster instead of I gotta comment this out. I gotta go uncomment this. Yeah, it's just a nice way to sort of troubleshoot, test some things, do stuff like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you don't want to save it like this because it will not run. You want to just have the code that you want at the end of the day. You can't have all these different select statements within one query. Yeah, oh yeah. That one thing is just watching people. You don't learn everything because there's amazing shortcuts. One of the best shortcuts is control forward space. That will comment out a whole section at once, so you don't have to go do it individually. Yeah, if I'm ever doing something and you guys are like, man, how do you do that? Yeah, it's just sort of muscle memory habit. Let me know, and you know, best to share those things with you guys so you guys develop those habits as well to get more efficient at this. All right. Sorry, we got a little distracted there. Decoded log. Okay, this is what I wanted to run. Okay, I want to show you guys. So the just calling the column decoded log, we see that it has all this information in here. And then if we use sort of this, I think of this as sort of like a key dictionary. I don't know if anyone has like a programming background, but really what you're saying is, hey, from this column, grab the from value. Yep, grab the from key and output the value associated with that. So it's outputting this. So I'll do the exact same thing with to and value, and it'll output the same thing. So I go like this. We'll call this to, call this value. And then I need to name these as from address as to address. Oops, put cat locks on, oh well. As value. Just gonna put that for now. All right. Oh, and I mean, I guess part of the downside is I forget that I have these others and I'm just hitting run, I'm not highlighting. So, yeah, again, just kind of muscle memory taking over. All right, awesome. This was way easier. So, using these fact decoded event logs, all I had to do is know that all the data is stored in here, call which key that I want to pull the value from, and it does it all for you here. So this was the easiest. I started from the hardest, went to the easiest. You guys do the reverse when you're trying to analyze data. Don't make it too hard on yourselves. But yeah, hopefully that sort of makes sense. I know it's very complicated. Use this as a reference and just try a couple different things and yeah, continue playing with it. And I promise you, you'll get it over time. This definitely took me a very long time to learn. I remember seeing all this and just being like, I'm just going to copy paste it. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm able to get it to work. And then you realize you need to make a small change, and then you start to understand a little bit more. So yeah, just give it some time here. All right, and I just wanted to show a really simple use case. So now that we've looked at all these, and I am going to comment this out now that I'm done with them all. So use case would be, in this case, we're seeing this topic, which is basically a transfer of this token. And this is just one transfer associated with one transaction hash. What if I want to see all transfers that have this, basically all transfers of this token, they'll all have the exact same topic 0, because that's what this hexadecimal translates to. So what I could do then is say, hey, from the event logs table, show me where topic 0 is equal to this. And then I'm doing it just for USDC, the token in question that we've been analyzing. And it will, I could do count, and it'll count every single time an event was emitted with that topic. And so basically what that means is I'm able to see every time a transfer event was emitted for this contract. And this is a very, very popular contract, so I expect this to be a very high number. All right, and yeah, it makes sense it's taking a long time because it. All right, yeah, what do we have? About 78 million. That seems about right for this contract. All right, guys. This was some tough stuff. I do want to get to sort of some bigger picture things. Before I do, anybody have any last questions on this? Hopefully, in the first few steps of your journey and as you're continuing to grow, you're kind of sticking with the easy tables and slowly branching out, and eventually kind of finding yourselves using this and using this plus the easy tables. Yeah, just take your time. It is challenging. All right, big picture stuff. Let's get to it. It's the fun stuff. Success moving forward. Everybody has different goals, but I think these are standard across the board. And number one above all, as I want to say, just be a sponge. There are, this is sort of what I'll call a nascent sector. This type of data has not been around for 20 years, even 10 years that people have been analyzing. Really, you guys are the first wave of people analyzing this type of data. And if you feel like you're late to the game, you absolutely are not at all, especially if you believe in the future growth of this industry. You guys are so early that it's almost funny, and I think that's really impressive that you guys have made it here already, and it's definitely going to give you an edge moving forward if you found this interesting and want to stick with it. So the number one thing I can say is be a sponge. There's a lot of great material out there right now by some sort of leaders in the space, but things are always changing, and anytime you join something so new like this, you really have to be adapting and staying on top of things and changing with it. I know, like when I started, I don't think Flipside even had the easy tables, and the fact that they added it and then I had to go understand them, I was like, whoa, this is fantastic. I don't know why I wasn't using this sooner, and I sort of was wasting a lot of time because I was sort of not trying to learn the new things that these protocols were coming out with. So be a sponge, always be learning, always be absorbing as much information as possible. Second one is be active on Twitter. The blockchain ecosystem, um, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, actually I think it's called X now. It does live on Twitter. It is the reality of it. I was never a very big social media person at all, and I'm still not. I struggle with it, but it was the biggest thing that sort of allowed me to meet other analysts and for other companies and protocols to see the work that I do and allow me to sort of go from just an analyst toying in the space to starting my own company in the space and being successful. So I definitely attribute that to Twitter, and I tell everybody to be active on Twitter, be engaging, share your material. Above all, most of the time nobody's going to look at it, but all it takes is one interesting insight that you found that takes off, and now all of a sudden, kind of everybody knows your name, and you might be like sort of the go-to expert for this sector. I know that happened with a lot of flip side analysts when Sol was kind of taking off. They were like the only ones doing it, and now they're kind of the go-to Solana experts. And yeah, I just say that that can happen with you guys as well. Third one, be creative. What I mean by this is there is about 1 million dashboards about NFTs that all have the same exact metrics. There are hundreds of dashboards about protocols that all have the same exact metrics. And I mean, the reason for this is because they've been done before and they're easy to replicate. And they are sometimes some interesting metrics to see, like user growth and number of transactions. These are spots where you guys should be starting as beginners. So I'm not saying don't do this. You need to start somewhere, but once you start feeling like you're confident in your skills, the number one thing you can do is to create something original. And like I was saying before, is this is such an early environment that you have this opportunity to be the very first person to look at something with a specific lens, analyze it, and then share that data. Every week, I am impressed by a new dashboard, by a new metric that someone comes up with, and they share. And I always think, man, why didn't I think of that? It's such a good idea, and nobody has done it before. And that happens to me once a week. So it's this rare opportunity where you guys have this opportunity to be extremely creative with data, be the first person in the world to ever look at something a specific way. So I highly recommend don't just recycle, after you get your feet wet, don't just recycle the same metrics. Get very, very creative, and yeah, and then share it again on Twitter. All right, the last big recommendation is to join communities. You're already doing that. You're here in Metrics Down. You're doing a fantastic job. Um, there are a lot of other communities. Like join the Dune Discord, join Transpose, Nansen. Join the Discords and just see what people are talking about. See if you think it'll be helpful for you. You can always leave. You can always just lurk. You don't have to engage. But on top of that, even more is there's a lot of communities out there that you can provide value to with these skills, and people will appreciate your skills and sort of help you. Like examples here would be like DAOs or just protocols. I'll talk a little bit more about this once we get to practice, but there's a lot of opportunities for you to just provide value since you have a skill that most people don't. And then, providing those values, you'll get positive engagement back and hopefully, sort of kind of join these communities. All right. All right, and just gonna follow up. It looks like Zook had a comment here. Confirm what Tim said earlier. Yes, Flipside can add new ABIs to their schema. When we find that an ABI is missing, they can add it if we provide them with smart contract info in ABI. Yes. So if you see that this method too, where this fact decoded event logs, you query a transaction and it doesn't have the data. But if you go find that contract, you can find the ABI and submit it to Flipside, just like Zook's saying here. And I think maybe give it a day or two. I think there's some documentation on it, and then it'll backfill the data. But if you're in a crunch and then you need to go the really hard way, you can always do that. But yeah, definitely recommend submitting the ABI if it's available and going this easy route. All right. And with that said, excuse me, Dune behaves a little bit differently where they don't automatically pull ABIs from smart contracts. So you don't automatically have this table. Every time you're doing something new that someone else hasn't submitted before to Dune, you have to submit it yourself. And the process is very straightforward. So I almost never touch the raw data, especially when I'm using Dune. I always go find the ABI and submit it to Dune. And then a couple hours later, it's neatly parsed down to tables. It's it's so much more time efficient other than, you know, doing all this code. It's just easier to pull the data. So I definitely recommend it. It'll make your life easier. All right, practice. Okay, so you guys have taken this course. You've aced all the homework. You've passed with flying colors. What's next? What can you do to be successful in this space? So I'm going to go through a couple of different routes here, and it all depends on what your goal is. So first off, though, I would say no matter what your goal is, one of the best things you can do is to review other analysts' work. Um, yeah, it definitely early on, it's something I spent hours doing is just looking at metrics and then looking at the code and not understanding any of it and piece by piece trying to understand it. And I think especially with the rise of like AI, just taking that code and putting it in there and saying, can you help me understand this line by line is accelerates your learning tremendously. I wish it was around when I started, um, but it's here now, so definitely use it. And then just sort of projecting from my own experience. So that's what I spent a lot of time doing. And then after that, I would reach out to them on Twitter, and just from my own context, I would always say like, hey, really liked your dashboard. I liked this about it. Can you explain how you did this? I would kind of ask questions, and I did this for two reasons. Really, one is I did want to learn above all. I wanted to know how they did these things. But second of all, I'm trying to build a connection, and I'm trying to sort of just open this channel of communication to network with people. And one thing you'll learn is that this analyst community is extremely welcoming. I think that's because everybody has been where you are at some point in time. I've almost never had an analyst ignore my message. Even some of the biggest analysts in the space, they've always gotten back to me like within a week and have been extremely friendly. So worst case is you just don't get a response and you move on. But I've never had that happen, and I've been blown away by how nice everybody is. But yeah, just also respect that people are busy. So yeah, just give it some time there. All right, let's run through different goals here. So I've talked to a lot of people sort of on the side about why they're in this class, what their goals are. What we have is one of the biggest ones is to get a job. One of the biggest ones was to perform your own research for investment purposes. I've actually talked to a couple people who are analysts at Web2 companies who either their company is sort of kind of branching into the blockchain space and they want to sort of level up their skills so that they can take advantage of that opportunity, or they're at a Web3 company and they want to just sort of help their company more by learning on-chain analytics. So that's sort of the three big ones. And then I've talked to some people who are like, yeah, I think it's interesting and I like learning things, so that's why I'm here. So let's run through each of these. I'll try and make this kind of quick here, but okay, if your goal is to get a job, again, my personal advice, maybe ask Zook after, ask other people, but I would say find active bounties. And what bounties are, it's a protocol wants to see a bunch of data. They'll just post an active bounty saying, hey, here's $1,000 to the top 3 dashboards that people make. Check out the Dune Discord, Flipside Discord, Metrics Discord for these active bounties. I know there's quite a few available right now. All right. Quick, Barry's got a question. How can we view code from existing dashboards on Flipside? So yeah, let's quick show you that. Go here. All right. It's taking a second to load. Uh, Kels, I think you got a live mic. I'm gonna mute you. Okay. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. If you had a question, Kels, let me know. Okay. This is a bad example because I don't actually have. Um, I go to Discover. Yeah, and for the most part, really just clicking on the graphs will bring you to the code. Icon layer is pretty popular right now. All right. Okay, so here's a really nice graph. And how do they do that? If you click on this, here you go. Brings you right to this. And then what's even better is you can fork it. That's almost what I do immediately so that I can start playing with the data. And it saves a duplicate version of that in your own private studio here. So um, yeah, so it's basically any graph you see, just click on it. And Zoo, correct me if I'm wrong, but do you know if Flipside has private data? I know Dune has private data, so you can't look at everybody's code. And I don't think you can have private data on Flipside. It's been a while. I know they talked about it, but not sure. All right, back to this. So, okay, if your goal is to get a job, first look at active bounties. It's fantastic. That's where most people kind of start. And at the end, if you end up doing really good, you get paid for it. So it's kind of a win-win of learning and then getting paid. If you're not that interested in that and none of the active bounties look interesting to you, one thing I really recommend doing is just being really proactive here. Find protocols that have no existing dashboards, or if they do have existing dashboards, they're not impressive at all. And do one of two things. One, reach out to them and say, hey, I'm not looking for any compensation. I really just want to practice my data skills. Are there any specific like data or metrics that you'd like to see? I want to build a dashboard for you guys. This is sort of does one of two things. It allows you to network. It allows you to analyze sort of like a new protocol and get your practice. And then there's always an opportunity that they're really impressed with your work and they have available funding and they would like to compensate you for your time. Do not expect that at all, but I think above all things, it's more the networking, and then they're more willing to share the data with their. So just run through example. Let's say there's protocol chapstick, and nobody has data on their protocol. You reach out, you say, hey, I want to build something, you know, you come up with a couple of really good metrics and you build that dashboard and you share it on Twitter and you send it to them and they say, whoa, this is awesome. We haven't seen this data yet. I'm going to go share it with our whole community. I'm going to go share it with our investors. That's really impressive. And I think it gets your kind of name out there and an opportunity to network further. So I definitely recommend that. I did that early on and yeah, just kind of built some really good partnerships through that. All right, moving on to the next goal. Actually, I'm gonna skip this one for last. But okay, if your goal is to support on-chain analytics for your Web 2 or Web 3 company, I couldn't really come up with a generic kind of recommendation here. Only thing I'll say is it's case by case. I love networking with people. I love talking to people. Love talking to everybody here. If this is you and you have a very unique case, just shoot me a DM. I'm very happy to set up like a quick one-on-one call, just sort of go through kind of what you're trying to expand with your company or what you're trying to learn, and I can provide sort of a case-by-case recommendation on how to move forward there. This is literally what we do at Slice Analytics almost all days. We have companies reach out to us. They say that, hey, this is what we want. How do we get there? And we sort of consult with them and then perform the analytics for them. So happy to just share that information with you to get you where you need to be. All right, if your goal is undetermined, I would say just find a sector that you love. If you love NFT lending, if you love, um, let's say, a specific token, if if you're really excited about a certain meme token, just dive into the data. If you're doing something that you sort of enjoy, you're gonna have a much better time, and you're gonna stick with it. So that's my recommendation there. All right, final goal is to perform your own research for investment purposes. Um, yeah, again, find sectors that you're interested in. My recommendation here, and there's so many different ways you can do this, but what I like to do is I like to identify small sectors that are seeing early growth trends. What I mean by this is, crypto is a very speculative asset. A lot of traditional market metrics are difficult to uh, translate into crypto. But one of the biggest things is um, uh, basically if you're early to a trend and more people come, a lot of times that benefits you. And other people might call that a Ponzi, but we won't talk about whether it's right or wrong. But just a common trend in crypto is if you are early to some type of protocol or um, let's use again, NFTs are very common, more mainstream. So I like using them as an example to convey. If you were early to NFTs, you got in, you were able to buy a lot of NFTs for pretty cheap. And then as more people came in, as more retail came in, the prices inflated and speculated to just ridiculous values. So it's beneficial for you to be early and identify those trends so that you could be. So that's what I like to do. And then once I kind of find a sector like that, I like to sort of dig into the data and try and find an edge. And just want to run through like one example here, sort of taking my lecturer hat off and more putting my DGen hat on. Sort of outside of work, just some stuff I like to do and digging into stuff. And I was using FriendTech as an example because I think it's the most recent one. But was seeing a lot of sort of early growth trends where people were starting to talk about it a little bit, and I felt like it was still pretty early. So some coworkers and I started digging into the data, and we were able to identify an edge, which was basically we saw that users who were depositing a lot of crypto to their FriendTech wallet um, were eventually increasing in value. And I don't want to go into too much detail with it, but basically what it means is you have to find these trends that nobody else has found yet, and that will help you get an edge. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down like rabbit hole of specific cases here, but I do just want to explain that like just being creative, trying to see trends and get in early on them, and then again being creative to see what type of metrics could potentially be profitable for you. Um, Single use case. I guess just the last thing I want to say on this is sometimes this is difficult because you think you're doing all the right research and you're seeing some really good trends, but the market doesn't respond to it that way. This crypto is not a traditional market that responds to standard metrics, in my opinion. It's very highly speculative. It's very highly like a social aspect to it. So it can be frustrating sometimes. You think you're identifying the key metrics, and it doesn't end up panning out the way you think. So be creative here, and just don't get frustrated when things aren't panning out your way. Just know that you got to identify why that was, and kind of go with the flow. All right, I think I made it through everything I had for today. Only 7 minutes over this time, so better than last time. Um, all right, I don't think I have anything else. I do have some questions in the Discord to follow up on. I'll try and get to that. We do have a final homework that will include just sort of a final dashboard. Last thing I want to say on that is the goal of this course is to help you guys learn. I know the homework's important because it helps you guys learn, but don't put too much weight on the homework if you're struggling too much. Um, the goal is that you learn, and we're here to help you learn. So try your best, do what you can. Um, it's a long process. You guys learning, you're not going to get it all in a day. So yeah, we're going to give you this last homework. It'll sort of be the last assessment of building a big dashboard. Do the best that you can. Don't kill yourself over it, but ask questions so that you're learning along the way. And then yeah, we'll be here to answer throughout the week and help you guys. And hey, once the class is over, it's not like we're gone. Yeah, stay in metrics down. Kind of ask more questions. Keep sharing what you're building. And yeah, I'm always available as well if you guys want to chat about anything. So cool. Appreciate everyone hanging in there. I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the evening. I do have a final lecture or office hours later this week. I think that might be our last opportunity to get together in a meeting session. So again, appreciate everybody hanging in there. You guys are doing a great job here. So I will see you guys soon. Have a good one.